Okay, we're going to call the meeting to order. Any disclosures of pecuniary interest? No, there being none. Can we get adoption of minutes for the last Parks and Rec meeting, which was October 6th? Councillor Reno, support. Councillor Carrick, all in favor. That carries as well. So we'll start with D1, items for consideration, which is the 2022 Fall Session Report of Joint Programs and Events between Culture and Rec and Public Works.
Thank you, Your Worship, and members of Town Council. So the report before you is the summary report from our Fall 2022 session. We provide a quarterly report after each session, and this one would be from September 1st to December 31st. The idea of the report is to provide you some results, participation, rentals, event-wise, and also to highlight the work that was done by Culture and Rec and Public Works throughout Fall 2022. Before I kind of go into some statistics related to the participation in the programs and events, one thing that we try to highlight is, although it might be, it's easy to quantify the participation numbers, the number of events and things of that nature that we can take from our active registration system. What's not as easy to quantify is the work and the support we get from Public Works and Parks and Facilities to help deliver the variety of activities that we deliver. Certainly the fall was another good example of our collaboration with Public Works to deliver some programming and events and great facilities for the community. Of note in the report to share is that the fall 2022 session was very successful. We have returned back to pre-pandemic levels, whether it be in aquatic programming, ice rentals, recreation programming. In total, we had 2,368 total participants, which was nearly 175% increase from fall 2021. However, in fall 2021, we obviously had restrictions that were in place provincially, and that limited the capacity that we could have. But if we compare fall 2022 to fall 2019, prior to the pandemic, the numbers would have been 2,214 back in 2019. So certainly we've returned and exceeded pre-pandemic numbers with regards to programming, which is very positive. What we've experienced for winter, which that report will come to the next pre-committee meeting, is something along the same lines. The demand for programs continues to be very high. Highlighted as well for you online versus in person. This remains from report to report very, very steady. 60% online, 40% in person. That number does skew when we talk about the very first day of registration, and it's more 85% online, 15% in person. So people are definitely taking advantage of the online registration system, and that has allowed us to, I think, better serve those customers who wish to speak to someone over the phone because there's less people, I guess, that are looking to do that. Maybe I would move on to memberships. There was 2,765 active memberships as of December 31st, 2022. And what we've seen is the memberships continue to increase since our closure back in January of 2022 due to the pandemic. We have had 21,634 total visits by our members in the fall, just from September to December, which was 183 visits a day during that period, and that was up 94 visits from fall of the previous year. In total, we were just shy of 49,000 visits by our members just in that fall session, which is amazing. When we look at the number of people who come to programs, and I alluded to earlier that was 2,600 plus, those people are all coming 10 or 11 times, and then they're also coming with a parent or caregiver, as most of the participants are children. You look at the number of membership visits, you look at the number of people who come to our rentals, which we'll talk about in the next couple minutes, hundreds of thousands of visits to the Volmer, and the Culture and Rec team and the Public Works team do a great job collaborating to facilitate that. With regards to ice rentals specifically, we were slightly up, but basically the same as fall 2021. All of our primetime ice on weekday evenings and weekends is at capacity. So not much change kind of in those rental numbers. It remains very busy, and LaSalle Minor Hockey maintains to be our biggest user at about just over 50% of the ice, 53% of the ice time. With regards to special events, it was nice to be able to offer some more events now that the restrictions have eased. We offered 6 town-led events over 17 days, and we facilitated 5 third-party events over another 12 days. So there was 29 major event dates in the fall, and as I mentioned earlier, we will continue to provide these quarterly updates, but our expectation is with the new event center is that just the number of events will continue to grow and grow and grow. The last thing I wanted to share, and I don't believe I include in the report, but I should share, is that we were also looking at the number of staff that work within culture and recreation, both full and part-time. And although that number, which was 87, hasn't changed since fall 2021, just to keep that number maintained, there was over 30 transactions of staff, part-time staff departing, new ones coming on board, and so on. So it's another example of something that's maybe not easily noticeable when we have maybe the same number of staff, but the support we get from human resources to get all of these people in and transition some of the people that are moving on out is quite significant when you think of it just in a September to December, that number of transactions. So we certainly report on the number of people that are coming to programs and rentals and activities and so on. And that's highlighted through the culture and rec data, but without the support from Public Works and Human Resources and Payroll and all the other departments, we certainly wouldn't be able to achieve the number of people that are coming to utilize culture and recreation services. I'm available for questions.
Thank you very much. Members of council, any questions on that report? Councillor Carrick.
Since I've been actually joined the VOMR for the fitness area, the morning swims are packed. Like, I mean, every morning I get done, I go out, and I go there at 6 o'clock in the morning during the week, and then 7 on the weekends. I mean, it's really, really packed. So is it just regular programming, or is it open swims? And I see a lot of seniors using it. So why is it so successful? Not that that's a bad thing.
So thank you for the question, Councillor. In the morning, you would predominantly be seeing members, those who are swimming laps in the morning, or there are aqua fitness classes. We do have a few parent and taught classes that go on during the day that are actual swimming lessons, but what you're seeing in the morning is predominantly our members. And as I was saying, 50,000 visits in the last, in 2020, or excuse me, in 2022. When we looked at the visits that we've had thus far in the past winter session, if we were to continue on that pace, the number I would estimate would probably be 65,000 for 2023. So it's, I think we have members coming back, members who have been longtime members, and that just equates to a busy facility.
Okay, thank you. It's just really busy and looks good, and I'm sure they're enjoying the benefits of it. Thank you.
Just maybe further to your question, Councillor Carrick, one of the challenges that we have is the success we're having. And as you mentioned, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but we are being stretched to the limits in terms of the facility capacity. We can't squeeze another aquatic program in. We can't squeeze another, as defined now, another prime time hour of ice that's available for rental. And so it's one of the challenges we have is that we have a facility that's great and very well attended and used, but we do have some challenges now as we continue to grow and the activity levels in the community are rising that we're not able to offer as much. And, you know, we've seen it in the past in day camps, for example, is something that we've seen in the past and is somewhat balanced at this point in terms of space we have, staff availability, and number of spaces that we have. I think if you looked at our day camp activity, we could easily sell probably double of what we have. The problem is that we don't have enough staff, we don't have enough space to operate them in an effective way, in a safe way for those that are attending. So that is one of the challenges that we're having, and some of the long-term focus that we're looking at across the municipality is that. You know, even when we look at it, and I know we'll be talking about the Strawberry Festival a little later in the meeting, but we hope that we have a Strawberry Festival as successful as we had in 2022. Now, we realize that in 2022, we were probably the first large-scale festival to happen after what would be the loosening of the COVID restrictions. And so there's a lot of pent-up demand. But we expect another, you know, assuming that the weather would be great. I mean, we had pent-up demand from COVID and great weather last year. You know, it was the perfect storms of sorts. But we couldn't squeeze any more people in there. And we've heard a lot of concern from folks having to wait in line for extended periods of time trying to get in. And so those are some of the challenges that we're going to have in terms of we can't find another venue larger for the Strawberry Festival without it becoming a very unruly festival for us to manage. So you know, it's a balancing act that we have, but that is certainly front and center in terms of what Culture and Rec is facing, but also what facility staff and our public works crew is facing. Like we can't clean the ice fast enough. We can't deal with some of the facility type issues in our existing facilities to the same extent that we would like to offer more space and programming. And you know, the pool's a good example. Ice is a good example. You know, there's examples everywhere. But that is something that, again, from our perspective, we're starting to look at internally, saying, you know, we had a vision for the Vollmer. That vision started sometime in 2004, I'm going to guess. And we eventually, you know, we're now 20 years in. And we are, you know, we're making good on the promise, so to speak. The problem is that we're so successful that we have no more capacity left. And that's really where we're at right now. We're trying every nook and cranny, and I know members of council have heard lots of commentary about trying to register and the difficulty that some of the patrons are having in registering for programming. And we're trying to find a better way to hopefully broaden the scope and allow more people to register. But inevitably, the governing factor is we only have so many spots. And that's part of the challenge that we have.
Councillor Riccio Spignolo.
Thank you, through you. Just a comment. So I know that our programs and everything are very successful, which is wonderful, so I applaud all of you. Is there any room to move any of the programs to the event center? Like say throughout the summer for your day camps, or we have the divider, which is great. Do some of your activities like your Lego and art class and things like that. Would that be something just so we can eliminate so many people being basically not accepted because the registry is already full? Would that be, and I understand what Mr. Militia said too, that a concern also is the issue of staff and staffing. So I do understand that, but I don't know, I know you guys are hiring some summer students, or if you have any answer to that.
Thank you for the question, Councillor. And yes, absolutely, we're looking at ways to leverage the facilities we have and the space that we have. We recently had our karate testing after our karate program at the event center, and it went very well. And we're definitely looking at ways where space is available and where we wouldn't impact, you know, the events that are going to be coming to the building, on how we can leverage the asset to make sure that we're utilizing the space as much as we can and we can accommodate as many people who are interested in coming to programs.
Perhaps if I could just add to that, just to share a little bit of background or history on sort of where we've come and where we're at now. And while that is a great idea, and we are trying to leverage that where we can, for something like day camp, for example, where we have such a big demand, it does become challenging to move that off-site in terms of oversight and supervision, along with the amenities. So oftentimes, and the reason I say to add some background is because many years ago, we used to make use of Holy Cross School. At one point in time, that's where our camps ran out of, and then once the Vollmer became available, we moved them. We had a big demand for that as well back then, but parents didn't like the idea of, some camps being held out of Holy Cross versus the Vollmer. The Vollmer was sort of, is the place to be because there's so many options for things to do. So while it does seem like a great solution to be able to move them over there, there are some challenges in terms of that might not be what people really, where they really want their kids to be.
Okay. Councillor Burns?
You still have Riverdance, and you have a pool. I mean, if you have an overflow, I don't know why we don't, even if it's only limited to 100 people, that we can take and have those programs that whatever can go on down there. I know that parents of young children, especially moms, want to get them out of the house so they can do some other stuff. So maybe we should be looking at that and hiring a supervisor and a couple of people to run that. It's just a comment for thought. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? No? There is a recommendation in front of you. Anyone? Shirley? Move the recommendation. And support, Councillor Carrick, all in favor? That carries. Item 2, Spring 2023 Activity Report.
Thank you, Your Worship, and good afternoon, members of council. So this report is something that we provide every session just to highlight some of the upcoming activities, both at the events at the Vollmer and now at the event center as well. I'll first pass it off to my colleague, Ms. Diego, to review the spring and summer activity registration dates.
Good afternoon, Your Worship and members of council. So for spring, we're currently started our spring session. We started our first week last week, except for Fridays and Sundays. They'll start their first class this week due to the holiday. And those classes and lessons will run until the end of June or the middle of June. In regards to the summer, everybody's been asking about about day camp. Starting May 1st will be day camp registration. We do anticipate that to fill up pretty quickly as we do have limited spots, and we've already been receiving a number of inquiries since January. In regards to other programs for the summer, our priority registration date will be June 5th, followed by a regular registration for June 12th, and that's for the summer swim lessons that we'll be offering at the Vollmer Complex in the outdoor pool. And then I'm going to pass it over to Owen to speak with the other dates that are coming up this spring.
Great. So on Friday, we opened the boat ramp successfully, as well as the restrooms down there. Throughout the rest of the spring and summer session, we're planning on opening the splash pad the Friday of Victoria Day weekend. The outdoor pool will open July 2nd. Sports fields will open the first Monday in May, and we have been working with our field and diamond user groups to ensure that they're ready for the upcoming season. And then all outdoor restrooms throughout the town will be opened by April 21st. Events hosted by the town in the upcoming months include LaSalle Spring Fling at the end of this month. We're also working with LaSalle Police Service to host a little meet and greet for their Police Week, May 17th and 18th at the Event Center. We're bringing back our Night Market series from May, June, July, and August, including September one that will happen in the fall. We're also working with the Rotary Club of LaSalle Centennial to offer a movie night sponsored by the town of LaSalle, and that'll be held at the Event Center June 2nd. And then, of course, we have the LaSalle Strawberry Festival hosted at the Vollmer from June 8th to 11th. In addition to Town of LaSalle events, some other third-party events that we're working with includes Play for a Cure, which is attending the Vollmer this Friday and Saturday. We're working with Rock Your Soul, which will be April 29th. Additionally, on April 29th, the LaSalle Turtle Club Parade will be hosted throughout the town on Front Road. And the LaSalle Firefighters Association is hosting their annual fishing derby on May 6th. And then finally, just a couple of closures. Victoria Day, Canada Day, and Civic Holiday are closures where the Vollmer won't be open, but our outdoor amenities will be open during those times. And I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Members of council. Councillor Reno?
Wrong button. Thank you, Your Worship. Just to confirm, the night markets will still be here this year, correct?
That's correct, yes.
Thank you.
Councillor DeJarle, no question. Anyone else? I have one question. Well, I had two, but he took one. The second one was user groups. So we were talking about baseball, soccer, everything being, I think it was the end of April. I have to find my date on here. Was it the end of April to be able to use the fields? Is that correct?
It's the first week of May.
First week of May. Okay. So I know you're talking to user groups. Have you also reached out to the schools, especially Sandwich being so close? I know this was an issue last year that we dealt with. In the past, they have used our field in April because they start much earlier than regular teams. They do have constructions going on at Sandwich, I believe, starting this week where the track and everything's being torn up, so they won't be using that. So I'm expecting that they're going to be reaching out to you guys sooner than later to ask to use one of our fields. And I don't know if that's something we're willing to work with them, where we could have one field available for them. I don't know, but I'm anticipating that call is going to probably come to you sooner than later, or at least to one of us.
Thank you for the question. It is my understanding that they have reached out to us, and our team at the Vollmer is working with them. Additionally, we always host a preseason meeting, if you will, with the school administration that typically includes the principal of the school, and that individual would invite anyone else who'd be involved in booking the fields to that meeting. So we'll have a chance to meet face-to-face and discuss any concerns in person in the near future as well.
And did you say that's coming up, that meeting?
That's correct. It has not taken place yet, but it is coming up.
Okay. Thank you, because I can make sure that members of council, if you do get any calls or questions about the use of soccer fields or baseball fields from Sandwich, because like I said, with construction, I'm really anticipating a lot of those calls, we'll direct them to Ms. Finero, who will then send them off to her staff, whoever should be contacted. Sound okay? Okay, fantastic. So that's everything for no other questions on item 2. And there's a recommendation there. Move, Councillor Richo-Spagnolo, support. Councillor DeJarle, all in favor? And that carries. Item 3, the Strawberry Festival update.
Thank you, Your Worship. Great that the Strawberry Festival is back. We are well underway with planning. We have a few individuals that are going to speak on this report just because it's such a highly town-wide involved event. First, I'd like to pass it off to Mr. Ferraro to discuss the budget, the meat and potatoes of the festival.
Good afternoon, Mayor and members of council. The budget can be found as one of the attachments to the report. And as mentioned earlier by Mr. Militia, last year's event was very successful, and there was many factors involved in that. This year's budget does take into account the success of last year. However, it is a responsible budget, in my opinion, where we are planning for a small surplus this year, and there has been some movement between accounts to reflect the actuals that we experienced last year. So overall, we are projecting a small surplus after a very large surplus last year, and we are hoping that is, again, a successful financial event. And I'm available for any questions at the appropriate time.
Just continuing with the report, I'll work way through the report for online ticket sales. So last year we were able to offer that as a solution, the first time ever that we offered that. Now we are planning on launching that again 2 weeks before the festival. We had about 6,000 people, just over 6,000 people purchase online tickets last year. So with some advanced promotion, we're hoping that number would increase a little bit. In terms of security, the 2022 Strawberry Festival was a success for security. LaSalle Police reported no notable incidents on the Saturday of the festival. So our security plan remains the same. We do intend to work with that same security company that we've been partnered with, as well as LaSalle Police and our other allies, to ensure the safety and security of all patrons attending the festival. One change this year for Strawberry Cleaning Night that's traditionally been held at the LaSalle Fire Service headquarters. Due to some constraints, we're moving that to the event center to allow for some additional parking and additional resources for people to come and get involved with the festival. So we're looking forward to hosting that on Wednesday, June 7th at the event center. First aid, we've also contracted a first aid supplier for the festival this year, so they'll have staff on site for the duration of the event. Our staff did respond to quite a few minor first aid situations last year, most notably heat exhaustion, issuing Band-Aids and such. So we want to be prepared and ensure that we have good first aid service should that be required. We've also secured our 2 headline acts, and we're moving forward with musical entertainment for the rest of the lineup. So on Friday of the festival, the headliner act will be Higgy Country Music, and on Saturday, the headline act will be performed by Autumn Kings. So they're happy to be back in LaSalle, and we're looking forward to having them. And then on Family Day entertainment, we have a strawberry eating contest as well, a magician entertainment show. The mascot dance-off is returning. This will be the second year that we're going to offer this. As you know, the Rise to Fame talent show does not operate any further, so we had to find some activities to fill the gap in the space in between. And then we also continue to work with our partners, most notably Life After 50 and Bike Windsor Essex, to provide different services throughout the event. So Life After 50 provides the strawberries and ice cream service, and Bike Windsor Essex provides a bike and bag check valet service as well. So everything for the festival is well underway. We're looking forward to another great year, and I'm available should there be any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Carrick.
Through you, Your Worship, I know the mayor had mentioned this and other members of council before. Are we looking to start a little earlier on the day that it's basically a PA day for the kids, for the parents to be able to, do we look into that this year?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Carrick. We have reviewed that. We have operated earlier in past years when there was a PA day. We worked with our carnival supplier to have things up and running, and it was not viable for them to be open earlier. So if the carnival isn't willing and or interested to open, it doesn't make a lot of sense for us to open earlier. Unfortunately, as much as people are off and they say they want to go, we didn't find that we had a big uptake on that during the PA days.
Okay, thank you. It's unfortunate.
Councillor Richo Spagnolo.
Thank you, through you. I know last year there was an issue with, obviously with the pandemic, a lot of food trucks closed, and so I know this year there's been a number of new food trucks, coffee trucks. Have we secured several this year? Because I know last year there was a concern with lineups for the drinks or the food, so we'd have A, more variety, and B, less lines. That's one of my questions. And then the other thing was, I echo what Councillor Carrick says. I do believe that there is a use for the Friday for opening early, even 12 o'clock, because it's a PA day and there's a lot of young kids and families that are available on Friday. And the feedback that myself alone is getting is very overwhelming. And you see it just even on social media that we have the festival here in town. It would be wonderful to utilize that Friday, which might condense your lineups during the day and evening as well. So that might just be a thought maybe to look into again.
Thank you, Councillor. For your first question, for food trucks, we do have a good variety who's applied already. At this time, in every year, we have not officially sent acceptances. However, we are working with our food truck and our other vendors to ensure that they have the right paperwork to attend the festival and they have the date held in their calendar. So our events team will be working on securing those individuals shortly, but it does look like we have a solid lineup for food trucks, and we're going to adjust the layout slightly so that some of the issues we were seeing last year with lineups would be alleviated with some additional planning.
Go ahead.
Perhaps if I could just add to that, one thing that we didn't mention in the report was that the layout has been adjusted slightly to allow the carnival to bring a few additional rides. I'm not sure if you know how many exactly. To bring 2 additional rides. So that will give us a little bit more room in terms of crowds and traffic flow, and also give 2 additional ride options to patrons attending the festival.
You stole my question for later. That was actually something I was wondering, was that layout, because last year on Saturday night especially, our biggest concern was that ride area. So if we're adding 2 more rides, is that the ride staying in that area, or are you flipping, or?
Yeah, so the rides are staying in parking lot 2 of the Vollmer complex. We've just, we've worked with the police and fire to find additional space that would allow them to put additional rides while maintaining the safety and security of the event. So last year, I know the carnival had told me that their new Ferris wheel had not arrived, and now it has. So we're expecting that to make a return as well.
Okay, that's great to hear, because I know that was one thing last year too, is people were saying we have less rides than we did in the past, which we do. We know that, moving from there to here, that we were a little bit more restricted. But I wasn't sure if we maybe considered changing that setup or somehow taking more advantage of the road that's in the middle that just sits there. Like, can vendors line that road to help alleviate stress somewhere? I know it was really scary at one point last year with the amount of people we had in there, but it just seemed like they were all in the ride area, so.
Thank you for the question. So we have looked at the layout again. I don't believe the road is an option due to power and water. So we wouldn't be able to put vendors along the road. However, we do, and we also need to leave one lane available for emergency access, of course. But one thing that we will be looking at this year is what our capacity is. When working with fire last year, they're technically in the fire code, there isn't a capacity because it's fencing and you can just open it up if you need to. However, we know now from last year, we didn't expect to have the crowds that we had, and we know now that we need to put a capacity on it. So we will be working with fire and police to calculate that, and we'll be monitoring that so we won't get to that point. Should we have the same demand that we had last year, we won't get to that point inside the festival area.
And just to follow up, you said you've already spoke with Robertson about Friday afternoon. They've said no?
We didn't. So sorry, thank you for the question. So we did not ask specifically for this year. In previous years, they indicated that they were unwilling to do so. We certainly can bring it back to them. However, that will we would need to adjust the budget then, because we didn't account for those hours in terms of staffing and security, and then of course our partners to provide strawberries and ice cream, the vendors, those sort of things. So that would entail quite a bit of change if we did want to look at that option. But the first would be to get the carnival on board, because I do feel that if the carnival is not operational, I don't think that people will want to come if they can't use the rides.
Agree completely. They'd be upset to pay an entrance fee and not have accessibility to everything in there. What time do we open on Friday? It's 3?
3 p.m.
Okay. I don't know. It's up to council and you guys. I'm not sure what they want to do. I know when we had it at Front Road Park, we did have that earlier. Friday, we offered sensory times. We also had, it was more even for grandparents who wanted to bring their little ones who didn't like the crowds that started forming around 3 and 4 and were more concerned about their safety. So I realize that numbers wise, it may not be worth it, but something I guess we need to consider, because we do get calls every year. It's a PA day, why aren't you guys open? So, what? Could we look into it? Thank you. Councillor Desjardins, did you want to ask a question?
Thank you. Through you. You just touched on it briefly. Are we having a sensory time this year? I know that we get requests from Community Living, Windsor, and Essex County, and I believe Harmony in Action would be interested in participating as well.
Yes, we are planning a sensory-friendly hour. I'm actually just trying to find the time in the contract, but my memory serves me. I believe it's on Friday from 2 till 3 p.m. that we offer that.
We open Thursday. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, Thursday would not be a good evening for that. Any other questions specifically with that, Councillor Burns?
I only have one. With less than 60 days to go and everything up in the air, we don't know, maybe, shouldn't the timeframes be set for a certain date? That whatever we're doing, here's what we're doing, and here's the hours of operations, here's the vendors that are coming. I mean, 60 days is not that long. When 10 days, 20 days, you're basically going to be weekends off for you guys. So, here we are, April 11th, and we really don't have we have a pretty good idea, at least from what I'm hearing, and maybe it's just me because I'm new, but I would think that the final plans should have been here now and presented to us. And we don't have to ask whether you can be open for 2 extra hours or 4 hours, or it should come to us in some form, maybe the end of March, and then we can review all of that. And then we're making final decisions today. It seems up in air, and we will not meet for another 4 months.
I'm going to put the blame on Mr. Militia. He deserves the blame today, so we'll give it to him. No, no, so from experience, and I know you can answer the question if you want to, but from experience of working on the Strawberry Festival Committee, this is extremely normal, especially for vendors. They won't commit much before 2 months before an event on whether or not they'll attend. Our hours are set, have been set the same for years. I think we're just asking for a change, just hearing from people the last couple years about that PA day. So everything else I believe is set. Your entertainment is mostly set. And like I said, vendors, I know some people come, 2 weeks before, if there's room, can I fit in? The weather looks nice now, I want to pay. So you can add to that if you have anything you want to add, and then Mr. Militia can fill in.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Burns, and for your comments, Mayor Malash. In my experience, I've been involved with the Strawberry Festival for probably about 10 years now, and this is well ahead of schedule for typical. This is very common in the event planning world. As you said, oftentimes vendors don't want to commit. We do have the hours set, we do have the contract signed, but there is some feedback to look again and go back to them again and ask if they will consider opening for the PA day, which we can certainly do, and we're happy to make those changes if it's something that we can accommodate. But I'm very confident in my role that we are well underway for planning and that things will go off as successfully as they always do.
Yes, it is my fault that this isn't before council. Again, that the committee structures or this committee scheduling took a little longer and it sat on my desk for a while. So that I will take the blame for. And so we will, the intention is that I believe that that a February meeting is a normal meeting that will happen for Parks and Rec. And so from that, you will get some of that information ahead of time. I don't think the detail will be available to the level it is today in February, but we can look at some of that feedback. One of the challenges just on the hours, and we can relook at that, but again, it goes back to what Ms. Finaro has indicated. If the carnival's not willing to open, then that's the difficulty part of it. I understand that the community will say that they will come, but as soon as they hear that the carnival's not open, no one shows up. And even from what we've heard from the carnival operator, the attendance has not been great during that period. Now, maybe it's time to retry it again and see if maybe the patterns have changed, and we'll go from that. But we will certainly investigate that, and if possible, we will adjust the hours.
Councillor Reno.
Thank you. Just in regards to vendor cutoffs, I know that when we did the night markets for Christmas, the holiday night markets, we had a cutoff of 2 weeks before. Do we have a cutoff for the Strawberry Festival as well?
We do. That's typically, so this week, vendor acceptances for those who've submitted will be sent out. Now, as Mr. Militia stated, or sorry, Mayor Malash had stated, we do still get interest in participating in the festival right up until a week or so before. So if we can work with those individuals and we're familiar with them and we want them back in our festival, we'll make efforts to make that happen as well.
And are there provisions in the forthcoming policy that's coming on this agenda? Is there room in there to do those types of things with the new policy that's coming?
There is, yes. There's a few scenarios that we've kind of played out, and based on some feedback over the past year of accepting vendors and having some changes, I think policy will help to address some of these concerns.
Any other questions? Councillor Desjardins.
Thank you. Through you, and it's not basically a question, it's just an add-on comment from having been involved in this event for a very long time. We get people, vendors, who will wait for the weather report. That's very common because it's an outdoor event. They just wait, and often we can help them, but not always. As to opening early, we have tried it a few times. And people are really good at saying, yeah, I'll be there, yeah, I want to bring my kids, blah, blah, blah. And you know what? They don't show up. So we're paying staff. The carnival is paying staff for rides to operate, and they don't have people riding, so they're not making any money, so they're not happy with it. So I think that those are valid points to think about. Are people really going to attend? Are they really going to come out? Because as we all know, people are really good at saying they will. And I just wanted to confirm, we have Remont's on board for the berries? Yeah, and you've got your
Yes,
ice cream orders?
yes.
You've got your ice cream order in?
We have our ice cream. We're working with Zares to confirm everything. We have to make a few adjustments because last year was an anomaly, so we kind of look back and see. But Raymond's is ready to go.
Okay, sorry, that's just my other side of my old hat running. Thank you.
Okay, I have two more questions. One with vendors. In years past, we had kind of like a mom and pop section for vendors. Do we have something like that set up, or are they all the same fee no matter what?
Just to clarify, are you talking about the artisan vendors?
Yeah,
I don't believe we have. No, so we did try that one year, if you'll recall, and we offered, I believe, a discounted price to try to encourage more handmade and homemade and artisan style products. However, the extent of the hours of the festival just aren't feasible. A lot of those vendors are, sole proprietors, and they can't commit to being at the festival that entire time. So we gave it a try, but I think those are really probably better suited for our night markets.
yeah, that's actually the question I received from someone from a night market. So they had asked about the Strawberry Festival, and I wasn't sure we offered that type of rate for the Strawberry Festival, so thank you for that. And then my last thing is the lines. They were awful, and we all know how bad that was last year. And I read in the report that we are having our Vollmer staff who will be doing the gates again this year because they're trained in two different things, which I understand and I appreciate 100%. Should we consider volunteers for the prepaid scanning of the tickets to help? Because even that line was crazy, and we really shouldn't have a lineup that's as long as your admin line for prepaid. So my question is, could we maybe possibly look at volunteers for those sections? We have so many people in the town, students looking for volunteer hours, they wouldn't be handling cash. And then also with those lines, I know last year I worked it for a little bit and we didn't take debit. Do we have that ability this year, or is it still just cash and credit card?
Thank you for the question. So for the last question first, it would still be credit card and cash. The vast majority of the money that came in was cash at the point of sale. With regards to check-ins, we were right around 20 people per minute throughout the whole festival. Certainly, we're looking at how we can always make it faster for everyone, but based on the statistics from the last festival, we were anywhere between 18.41 and 21.53 people per minute for the festival.
I'm not going to argue with stats, but I can tell you just from standing there and working it for several hours, it wasn't flowing, and people were getting very upset. More in the prepaid admission line, they weren't as upset. And I realize you're saying that most of our stuff is cash. That's because everybody who walked up to me asked for debit first, and I told them no, then they had to find the cash. So I don't know. I know our debit machine last year was inside the park. Should we consider something before the gate to help with that and put a big sign saying, cash and Visa only or cash and credit only? Because that was one question working that gate. I just kept getting people saying, well, especially teenagers, I don't have a credit card, I have debit. And we'd be like, okay, one of you run in, go to the machine and come back. So if that's something to help.
Those are all things we can certainly consider. The credit card option is limited by the company that we work with, which is the company that we also use for our recreation software. So we're limited in terms of that, but we can look at the options in terms of where we place the bank machine, but there is two entrances, so that does make that challenging as well. Certainly having that feedback now, we can work with strategy and engagement to try to communicate that information out earlier. And then the last thing I just wanted to mention was to keep in mind that this was a new thing last year. It was new to us. It was new to the public. We had some last minute glitches, I guess, in terms of the hardware not arriving, so we weren't able to launch things as early as we wanted to and understand how the program worked. So I do think, and then on top of that, we had record crowds. So we had, lineups bigger than we'd had. We hadn't had our staff involved. So I do think we had a lot of learning that happened last year, and I do think that we'll be able to make some adjustments this year that will make it run smoother.
Oh, and I agree with you 100%. It was a great launch of it. I mean, there's always hiccups here and there, and I think it'll be better this year. I just think if we can use some volunteers somewhere to help, also not cost the festival as much with staff hours, we should consider that. Councillor Reno?
Thank you, Your Worship. One of the interesting things that's happened in the last year and coming out of COVID, on Remembrance Day this year, a lot of the poppy vendors, for choice of better words, had a tap and pay with an exact amount, whether it be $2, $5, and it seemed to be a very easy and simplistic way of collecting money. And I'm just wondering if for next year, because I know we are getting late now to look into something like that, could we look into like a single ticket price tap that they could literally tap it, get that amount and walk right through? That maybe is not part of our recreation software, but could then be integrated into our system in some way. Could we look into that for next year?
So thank you for the question. So actually, prior to last year's festival, we met with TipTap, which is the company that does that software. So the challenge with TipTap is that it's in one denomination. So the button is, say, $5. So if you wanted to walk up and pay for 4 people in your family, you'd have to tap it 4 times each time to go through. Or you'd have to buy a denomination button in 5, 10, 15, 20, and you have to purchase the hardware for each of those. And then there's a per transaction fee as well. So when we evaluated what the options were available for last year and compared it to the software that we used last year, we felt as though the one that we're currently using was a better option based on the limitations of the TipTap.
Given the fact that I would imagine you do have a lot of families coming 3 and 4 at a time, I appreciate your answer. Thank you.
Councillor Regis-Spignola?
Thank you, through you. So I was going to touch on that as well. The TipTap is a great asset. I use it for my events, but also you can reach out to your bank if you haven't already. The banks also have, we use them for larger galas. They have the machines that you can use the debit, but the TipTap is good because we have them for $2, $5, and $10 in denominations. You're more than welcome to use them. You just have to speak to John over there just to switch the systems if that's an option for you guys. But the lines were absolutely crazy because last year Mayor Malash and I went to work the lines for a few hours, and your staff were really good and the volunteers, they were great, but I think that's an option to kind of eliminating a little bit of those lines. And then the other option, I know you said that you're going to be putting them online, the tickets online 2 weeks prior. Perhaps there could be I think we had this last year too, a separate line, but another separate line just for that. And then one more thing I wanted to touch on is if we can be more vocal on social media with backpacks. Because I do remember last year when Mayor Malash and I were working we just were speaking right after the opening, and we're like, wow, they need backup. So we went to help, but a lot of people were stressed because they had backpacks, not diaper bags, but backpacks. And then they'd have to go back to their car, and if they parked far, they would lose their spot in line if they were either by themselves or whatever the case may be. So maybe we could be more vocal on social media about the rules, just so people are more aware of that as well. Just my thoughts.
Councillor Carrick?
Yeah, sorry, just to get back to the credit card cash thing. So, and I know there's an account thing, maybe through to finance or whatever, but we would not, the family business, we would not like taking credit cards because it costs us too much money for the payments as opposed to debit. Debit's a lot cheaper, so why wouldn't we be able to have our account adjust that? Why would it just be specifically for credit or cash to make payments through our software system? But at the same time, that should be an easy fix to be able to add debit instead, because credit basically costs you more money to use. The person that's getting the money. you pay more percentage. Debit basically is just a one-time fee, and it's very minimal compared to that. So how does that not work?
Through your worship to the councillor, the system is part of the recreation software system. So it encompasses the credit card and cash, and but there is a fee, and it isn't included in the budget, and there is a fee. However, it is a portion of the software system that does not allow for debit. So we would have to find a totally different solution, and there is other advantages to this solution where it comes to tracking the attendance volumes and the dates and the times they came in the festival. So there's many things involved in it, and that is one part of it as well, but there is a charge for credit card fees, you are correct.
Just a quick follow-up then. So would it not be feasible, I'm just throwing this out there, maybe this is not right. Could we not even look at just opening up an account through this credit union or wherever we deal with, where you can get the Skylight tap for debit? How hard would that be?
We can certainly look into that in the very near future.
Just want to perhaps just remind the members of council, I know there's a lot of conversation around the lines and the amount of time that people are waiting in lines. And certainly we can do a lot of things to help expedite folks that are in line to get them through the gates. But one of the things I think that we learned off of last year's festival, and again, it was record weather, record numbers, record situation, I'll call it. One of the things we did learn through that is that the amount of people that we allow in the space, we're taking a better look at that. And so I don't want council to go away and think that we can institute a bunch of technology to help alleviate the lines, but at some point, our capacity will be limited in the park. And I know from a fire safety perspective with the gate situation, with the fencing situation, that in case of emergency, they can just open up the fence and people can exit, because that's all they're concerned about. But I think if we had police here, they would be concerned about the amount of people in a regulated space. And so from that perspective, we have to be conscious of the fact that there will be times where the lines will be long because we're waiting for people to exit to allow people in. And regardless of the technology we have, they're going to be waiting in line because we need one person to get out so that we can let a new person in. And so that's just that side of it. Again, it's just a factor of the space that we have and the amount of people that we want to allocate into that space and allow them to participate safely. So from that perspective, I don't want folks to go away and think that, well, we can implement some technology and we will help alleviate lines. The complaints you're going to hear next is that I can't get in because they're not letting anybody in. And that will be a true fact. We won't let people into a situation that becomes unsafe. And so that will be the reason why the lines are there. And I mean, I think back to my younger days when I used to be young and stupid and wait to get into a bar in the middle of winter with no jacket on, as I hope everyone else in this room has done that stupid thing. But that was the whole premise, right? You waited in line just to.
You don't miss, you never wait.
You waited in line because that was the whole appetite to get inside, and I think that's part of the demand that we have. But again, I just wanted we have some capacity limits that we are looking at more closely from a safety perspective from that side. So again, I just wanted to offer that for members of council just for their consideration.
Any other questions or comments? All right. Motion to receive, Councillor Burns, support. Did you want to do the whole thing that was recommended as far as also approving the budget?
Yep.
Okay, and that's supported by Deputy Mayor. All in favor? And that carries. Item 4, last call before fall.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Your Worship and members of council. The last call before fall event, as you may recall, has been designed to take the place of the LaSalle Craft Beer Festival. We had several years of poor weather during the Thanksgiving weekend, so prior to the pandemic, we looked at a way to switch the weekend and reinvent it a little bit, and this was the concept that we came up with. We've worked with our partners at Tourism Windsor Essex Pelee Island to ensure that the dates that we've selected at this point in time are not the dates, they don't conflict with other events. These are, in fact, the dates that typically the Amherstburg Wine Festival used to be hosted, so we know that there is a gap there in terms of events on that weekend. So what we're looking for today is just authorization to begin the planning process. We will be bringing forth a more detailed budget at the June committee meeting, but we will be budgeting for a full cost recovery. And then we are also looking for a resolution to declare the event an event of municipal significance so that we can move forward with the special occasion permit. And I'm available should there be any specific questions. One thing I did not, I should mention as well, is that the folks at Tourism Windsor Essex Pelee Island did reach out to us in the early stages to ask us to align their brand of barrels, bottles, and brews, along with the Epic Wineries brand, with this event. So they will be coming on board as a full partner, which really is an exciting opportunity for us and gives us a chance to leverage a lot of their resources in terms of promoting the event and recruiting vendors.
Thank you. Members of council. Councillor Kerr? Any other? Councillor Reno, do you have a question or just support? Okay. No comments? My only comment is I'm so happy we finally get to do this after 2 years of talking about it, and especially excited that it's at the event center so we don't have to worry about the weather. So thank you guys, and I look forward to hearing more in June. So we have a mover and a seconder, all in favor? And that carries as well. Moving on to the last item, municipal events, vendor selection, and attendance policy.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this report is bringing forward a policy that we've created to help address a number of concerns that have come up throughout the past year as we return to markets and events that require vendor attendance. So the vendor attendance and selection policy is designed to indicate how we select vendors for an event, how we notify them. So I know there were some concerns with vendors that they weren't receiving enough notice, or perhaps in some cases they said they received too much notice and they weren't sure of their schedule. So it identifies some solutions to those inquiries, as well as the responsibilities of vendors when they're attending a Town of LaSalle event. So we're at the point right now where our night markets and our events actually have more people interested in attending them as a vendor than we have spaces available. So, you know, if we go back a couple of years when that wasn't the case and everyone could get into the night market, there were no issues. But now we're finding that we are having to turn people away or asking people to attend maybe 2 or 3 events rather than all 4 or all 5. So the policy is designed to help staff identify how vendors are selected, and then also provide some transparency to the vendors so that they know this is our process for doing this. I'm available to review the policy or any questions. Thank you.
Members of council, questions or comments on the policy? None? All right, so there's a recommendation for this one. Moved by Councillor Carrick, support Councillor Desjardins, all in favor. That carries. Questions and statement members from members of council, or of committee, sorry. Councillor Richa-Spagnolo.
Thank you, through you. I'm not sure if this is the right time or not, but if we can maybe put in the budget in 2024 to do something for Easter, like a Easter egg hunt, something Easter focused for 2024. Thank you.
Okay. I know in this year's budget, I believe we allotted for 1 additional event. Does that sound correct? Is that correct? It is. Do we have any plans for that at this time?
Thank you for the question. We have worked to lay out some plans for events for the year. One of the events that we have brought back is the Spring Fling, which was not part of our budget. And I believe there's something else, we've added some additional movie nights in as well.
Thank you very much. So if we could maybe look at Easter for next year as a new one-day event, is that what you're looking for?
Like visits with the Easter Bunny. I know when, I don't know, like an Easter egg hunt in the park. I think that's good. I've been many years ago at the Libro in Amherstburg, and it's always a success, or Easter Bunny visits, things like that. I can discuss more ideas at a later date, but if we can just budget for it.
Whatever happened to our partnership with WFCU? We tried 2 years, I believe, to do the drop, the Easter egg drop. Did that just, that's it? No more?
Thank you for the question. I believe that due to COVID, that was something we did try initially, and it was canceled due to weather. And then I think the next year was the pandemic, and we had several years of not being able to run events. So I think that they sort of gave up on that idea. But that's certainly something we can reach back out to them and see if they're interested in trying that again, perhaps, or we can look at what other options there are and bring that forward as part of the budget process.
Councillor Reno?
Just in defense of the team, I would imagine that the man-hours to put on the spring fling between both departments, as usual, is quite significant. So as much as I did get some comments about where's the Easter Bunny and things like that, I kind of deferred them to the spring fling because that's coming up in just a couple of weeks. So it's just a thought in their defense that they've kind of got a lot going on this year. And maybe next year, if we don't have a spring fling, then that would be a place for Easter Bunny. But I think to expect them to put on 2 events within a couple weeks like that might be problematic.
I agree, which is why a partnership might be even better for us if we can find someone who wanting to bring it. When WFCU brought it to us, they were pretty well running it. I believe we were just more or less providing facilities. So if we can find a partner in the community, I think that would, for many of our events in LaSalle, we need more partners to join us so that we aren't doing all the work, because we do a lot in LaSalle, and you guys are a little busy, so I understand that. Any other questions or statements? None?
Just have one.
Councillor Burns.
For the next meeting, can we get an update on what we're going to do or what we're going to put in our parks for this year? Please, whoever handles that.
That is a great question. Normally, we do have a report regarding our flowers and park trimming and items like that. So if we could get something there, I may be a little late by that next meeting. But I know last year, and we did discuss this, we had issues with our flower provider, and I don't know if we've kept the same person this year or not.
Thank you for the question. We've changed who we are using this year. We've gone to more of a spend our money in various locations rather than going out with a tender for the flowers. So we're doing a little bit of an experiment with that in hopes we can go pick the best quality flowers that we want, and we'll see how that goes this year.
Thank you. Anything else? Nope. All right. Next meeting is June 27th. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.